All right, so it's Monday, and we've actually had a really productive day today. As you can see, we're going to have a guest to talk to. I left you last night with we were working on a plan. We're getting it written today, working on the fund to actually fund the plan, where it's by we the people because it's our project, Western North Carolina, WNC Strong. Um, so the plan came out really good, and the fund's coming out very well, very good as well. It'll have one accredited investor fund and one crowdfunding, and the part of the crowd fund so everyone could be a part of it. But through the plan, we have a lot of different aspects because this is a silver bullet to rebuild all of Western North Carolina at one time and keep the tourism here so we don't lose it. That's the main focus, is to find a way to keep the spotlight on us and use our natural resources, our people, to fund this, but keep the spotlight on what makes Western North Carolina Western North Carolina. Why do people want to come here? We want to keep the spotlight on that so everybody knows that we are rebuilding. We're not going to be Katrina in 5 years from now. We don't have the funds. One thing with Katrina, they didn't release the funding because they couldn't get permits. Um, and we're getting that worked out with the actual politicians, so that isn't a hiccup along the way. But we want to keep the spotlight on Western North Carolina. We were in the spotlight because we were a disaster. Now let's be in the spotlight because we're doing things the right way. We're rebuilding the right way. We are coming together as a family, as a group, as Appalachia, and we're actually rebuilding ourselves. And if we can keep the spotlight on that, it's going to make a national movement where people look at us and say, hey, that's the way it should be done. And that's the whole point of this plan. I can't really talk much about it yet because we have to get all the legal documents, and the lawyers are working on the legal documents. I don't do that. And I don't do the creation of the fund. Um, we've been blessed. Everything that we've needed along the way, from the very beginning, from day one, God has sent our way. So, like, if I had a need, we got the need filled. I needed a crowdfunder. I couldn't find anyone that had ever crowdfund. And then I told y'all that I have the founder of WeFunder show up and stay in my basement, and we were able to write that fund, or we're working on it now. And I've got a lot of cool stuff. I'm going to keep a book, and we'll have all the stuff that God provided along the way and all the signs God provided along the way. I started writing all that down on Saturday, so I think it's to be a really neat book. But one of the um, parts of the plan, of course, is housing. And how do we provide housing now? How do we do the long term housing? How do we come together as a community and use the natural resources that we have and the people inside Western North Carolina and keep the money here? That's one of the big ones. But yesterday, actually, after I got through with the first version of the plan, I get a text from Brian Moffitt, and he said, hey, these guys are trying to reach you. And well, they called grade 828, but it's about housing, so they need to talk to you. And made the call, and this gentleman, Ralph, the Captain Avalon, he actually pretty much well said word for word what I had written in the plan. It was crazy. I'm like, oh, there's a sign from
It was God, brother.
Yeah. He has everything. His vision is everything that our vision of Western North Carolina is, to rebuild now, um, keep it in the people. We're not going to rely on big corporations for funding. We're not going to let big corporations come in and make the money off of us, because we want to keep the money here and do it the right way. And we're not going to wait on the government, but he has the inside track to get us the government funding released straight to the states and not make us go through all of the hoops. And we don't want what the Clinton Foundation did to, was that Haiti?
Katie.
We don't want that. We want it to be released straight to us for us to use it. in the plan, we do not necessarily have to have government funding, but if they'll release it straight to us, then that's what we do want. So this is Ralph Avalon, president of Patriot Survival Tactical Team. He's got a long resume. He was in Asheville and Burnsville today. He came straight here. Once I told him we were going to do a podcast and let him introduce himself. He is a 501c3, and we'll put his website in the comments after this. But I'm going to let him introduce himself, talk about what he has, what he's done, and his vision for taking Western North Carolina and partnering with WNC Strong and get us into the housing. So,
hello. As you said, my name's Ralph the Captain Avalon. I'm president of Patriot Survival Tactical Team. I was a private military contractor for 35 years. My expertise is in rescue, recovery, and relief. I was deployed to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, first on rescue and recovery. Wound up being an opportunity to really put a phenomenal plan in place. It was an idea. There was a company here in the United States that was retrofitting shipping containers to make sustainable housing, and they were putting atmospheric water generators on the roofs, power them with solar. So I reached out to the company. I said, how many do you have fabricated? And they're like, well, we've got about 2,500 fabricated. We got a subdivision that we've done in Vermont, and we can deploy them in it, anytime you need them. So I worked with, at the time, the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection, Lisa Jackson, at that time. It just so happens she was born and raised in New Orleans. And when I showed up after we had done recovery in the lower 9th Ward and the water had subsided, I got out of my truck and I see a woman and like 30 yards away, and I'm like, I know that woman, but it wasn't calculating in my brain. So I walked over to her and I'm like, Lisa. And she's like, Ralph. And we were like, what are you doing here? Well, her aunt and her nieces lived in the lower 9th Ward and their house was gone. She couldn't find them. So I got on the horn. We found out where they were. What we did in Katrina, and it was surprising that we didn't do here, and it's really got me, baffled, is we got families that lost everything on C-130s and flew them to their families in other states so that they had a safe place to go, right? We didn't really need the housing.
Really?
We're talking about C-130s that were constantly going out, and that wasn't a thought here. And it's confusing.
Well, they didn't show up for the first, I don't know. We had an actual air attack through Hope Mills, and the lady that's our CFO, she was running that operation, but there were several operations. If you saw like NASCAR, Greg Biffle, there was a lot of just private helicopters.
Yeah, Wings of Hope.
And we were running just a team of private helicopters, planes, fixed wing.
Yep.
And that's all we really had.
But that was citizens, bro.
It was all citizens.
It was all citizens.
It was all us doing it. It was, we raised the group that we were with, they raised over $1 million. I think they're up to like 1.1 on GoFundMe. And that's how most of the air support happened. It was all private. Well, that's how all of it happened.
Yeah,
and then,
absolutely.
of course, Biden showed up and decided that he wanted to be here. So that shut us down for a day.
Yep.
He could have just stayed home, but he didn't.
Yep.
I would like to see the flight map, get all the different tail numbers from the helicopters and fixed wings. I like to see that flight map. See it in real time, like from the time it happens, start seeing all the, like, build the map.
Yep.
And see all those flights.
And you know what I think it'll be? I think it'll be like 9/11 when you saw all those planes just land within minutes. I think the overlays that we eventually see of these flight patterns is just you'll see an absorption of that airspace that was really geared towards rescue and recovery. But getting back to Katrina, we utilized these sustainable housing units and deployed them to the people that didn't have families. And we were able to drop them right in the lower 9th Ward, right? And they were powered with solar. It's humid atmosphere. They were getting fresh potable drinking water. They would get the power from solar. We put a couple little 10 kilowatt, 20 kilowatt in the community where we couldn't get enough power for them, whatever, but it worked, right? So when Gustav hit, we went back. We already had the plan. We licked and sticked it, used the same company to do that. Flash forward to 2010 when the earthquakes hit Haiti, that massive earthquakes hit Haiti. You know, a very poor population, a lot of people starving, no access to housing as it was. But it was, out of all my deployments in 35 years, it was probably one of the most cataclysmic events that I saw firsthand. But at the time, I was working with the Clinton Global Initiative that eventually evolved into the foundation. And they decided that because of my expertise, in not only in rescue, recovery, and relief, but also in development, that it would be prudent. They can kill two birds with one stone, send me over there.
Right.
So these SG blocks, they were already over there, ready for me when I landed. You know, over there, there's no building codes, there's no building departments. So all we had to do is pretty much grade the rubble and then set these up. So in 14 days, we put 400 units powered by 1.5 megawatts of solar power, and these people had habitation. The difference we have here in North Carolina is that every day now that goes by, it gets colder and colder.
Yep.
We have people living in
we have
people living in tent cities, and nobody from the federal government or the local governments, the state, trickle down to the counties. Nobody has come up with a plan of immediate implementation, what I like to call an emergency plan for emergency housing.
Yeah, we're way behind the eight ball.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that company that we used in Haiti, Gustav, and Katrina is no longer in business. It just so happens that one of our board members is personal friends with a gentleman who is on the Parliament of the Netherlands. His private sector company makes these sustainable housing units. Okay. So we reached out to him immediately and said, well, what do you got? He says, well, currently right now, I've got an order from the city of New York paid for by the federal government to deploy them to Freedom Island to house illegal immigrants. He said, I'm going to give them their money back and we're going to get these to you in a week.
Nice.
So we just worked this coalition about 10 days ago. And in 10 days, we've got the AutoCAD drawings to HUD. We have friends in HUD that are expediting U.S. building code approval for them. And if that happens at HUD, then we will immediately be able to go past the state and past the counties. They will literally have to pass permits within hours for us to place these things.
Nice.
But the crook in the craw is always the contamination, right? So you have a mix of different contaminated soils in each of the areas of Western North Carolina that were affected, and that becomes a problem. So what we've done is we've taken soil samples. They're on their way to New Hampshire to a company called Moleculoc. I met the company in Moleculoc during the Gulf oil spill disaster, the Deepwater Horizon disaster. Our organization, friends with DEP Commissioner Lisa Jackson, I called up Lisa and I said, listen, between my international nonprofit and the DEP, we should hold disaster response summits along all of the Gulf states. Long story short, Mobile, Alabama. This big, heavy set guy, burly beard from New Hampshire comes up and he says, a most soft-spoken man you've ever heard. And he says, Miss Jackson, Mr. Avalone, will you please walk out to the beach out those doors with me? He had a Lexan box, right? Nothing was in it. He goes to the beach. He scoops up an oil slick on the sand. He carries it back in and he puts it on the table. And he invites everybody in the room to come over to the table. He reaches into his briefcase. He's got a Ziploc bag. And it looked like dirt.
Right.
Okay. And I'm like, oh, God. It was like America's Got Talent. You know what I mean? We're like, okay, what are we looking at here, right? So he takes this Ziploc bag and he takes a handful of the material and he sprinkles it over the oil slick. It sounded like Rice Krispies on crack.
Really?
Within 45 seconds, all of the oil had dissipated in the sand. What he has done is he's created, he owns a worldwide patent on an Icelandic volcanic ash. He takes the ash and he cultivates a living nanite to eat any contaminant. So the nanites, what they do is they're trained to feed on oil. When they eat their fill, they explode into a biodegradable organism, and the sand was clean. We put it in boom material.
Man, that sounds like science fiction.
Yeah, we put it in boom material to eradicate the oil that was on top of the water. Okay. So at the same conference, we met a technology that can clean the sand, clean the water, and we used with a partnership through the Florida Institute of Technology. They have a Center for Resiliency and Preparedness. We were getting engineers from all over the world giving us fixes to cap that well as fast as we could.
Right.
Well, we put it through their computer program, and we actually used a plutonium tip charge and we melted that wellhead inside of itself. So in Mobile, Alabama, we cleaned up the oil with this product. Now flash forward to where we are here, right? We flash forward to where we are here.
Right.
We have different contaminants in all of the major areas that were affected in West North Carolina. We're sending those soil samples. By Thursday afternoon, he will be cultivating nanites to kill those contaminants. He's got 200.
So explain these. So these nanites are like, is it going to be a organism that you would put sort of in a septic tank? Like
yes.
So it's basically organism,
living organism.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
And he can train those.
He can cultivate them. Yep.
He can cultivate them to clean up a contaminant of any kind.
So what we're doing now is we have sent that science, and it's already approved science, to this DEP commissioner with all of the due diligence that we did during the Gulf, the Deepwater Horizon. And when those shipping containers, they're coming to South Carolina, we want to immediately deploy them. Yeah, I don't know what the port is right now.
Okay? Yeah,
but when they come there, we will have already had the contaminants in the locales so that we can decontaminate with the nanites the footprint of that shipping container going on the ground. If it can't go on bare ground, because there are a lot of areas like in Burnsville and Avery and the NC counties where the ground is uneven, okay, we can't get to it to grade it.
Luckily, we develop in the mountains, so I've got the solution.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to release the nanites in the footprint of the shipping container. And then what we're going to do is we're going to build them on 8 to 12-inch footings and put another vapor barrier down so that we have double indemnity for the potential of contaminants, because that's what we have to take away the liability of the DEP and the local counties that they're going to approve something that's not going to come back and bite them, because that will kill the economic development.
Here, let me show you what we did in Texas. It might be. And keep speaking. I'll look this up.
All right. So the plan is for us to be able to immediately deploy these 400 units that are diverting to South Carolina. We have put it in order for 10,000 units, of which 2,500 units are already manufactured and ready to ship to the United States. What we did is yesterday we had a press release of our Operation Safe Shelter. It's our plan to do several things in 3 stages. We need to plan immediately for.
So we did this in Texas.
Oh, listen, that's a lot sexier looking than what we'll be dropping.
Look at that one. But you see how we did the footings, like we poured them.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
So we can do that.
Yeah. So what we have is we have an order for 10,000. They can make 2,500 every 3 months. 2,500 are already manufactured plus the 400. So we'll have 2,900 that can be immediately deployed for emergency housing relief. Operation Safe Shelter also talks about the intermediate. I believe that we can work in concentric circles in regards to the emergency relief housing as well as the intermediate. And the intermediate would be tiny houses that have already been fabricated, right?
Yep, we've got those.
Right. So what we're working on right now is you have to do the trickle down with government, right? Yeah. So we've put in the request to HUD that do they have any owned property in Yancey County, Avery County, Macomb counties that they can dedicate to us in a public-public partnership, that we could do a land lease with the federal government and put those shipping containers or the tiny houses on those pieces.
We should talk about the U.S. Forest Service too.
Yeah, but the problem is, brother,
is government
is the federal government.
The
federal government is not going to release their land. They never have during.
Now the state has some land as well.
So that's the second part. Now we go to the state. I've sent a letter to the governor this morning. Okay.
Good luck.
Requesting good luck. Yes, exactly. So,
but we do have the end through the Speaker of the House.
Right. But now it comes down
the governor has to be the one to release it.
It comes down, brother, to the citizen soldiers of this state
that
have taken rescue, recovery, and relief into their own hands. And here's how it works. We go to a local business owner in each one of those counties. And if they have a parcel of property, we do a public-private partnership for that property. We put a temporary subdivision so that we can get people in warmth, right? Those same people will go into eventual rebuilt houses that our collaborative programs together, creating a symbiotic relationship, right? But here's where it really gets amazing, right? So we're going to take whatever shipping container emergency housing that we put down, and eventually we're going to bring that back up.
Mhm.
And the tiny houses will now go where they were in the future for low-income housing in these communities.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we.
But here's what's great.
That's part of the plan that we have.
Now we will have 2,900 of these shipping container housing units that we will archive somewhere in the United States that can be immediately deployed
Yeah, that's
after
amazing.
disaster.
This
Okay?
is only going to get worse.
But
Like,
here-
these disasters are only going to get worse.
Absolutely. It gets even better. And here's where it gets better. Okay. I've reached out to Tunnel to Towers. Okay. We have 160,000 homeless veterans in the United States.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I know where you're going with this.
We are going to
Sounds
create a
amazing.
public partnership with Tunnel to Towers. And when those tiny house homeowners now evolve into their final houses that we rebuild, we're going to make U.S. veteran communities out of those tiny houses.
That's I mean, if I was going to write, I didn't include that in my plan.
Take it.
But
It's
now
yours.
I don't. Now
Take it,
that
it's
now that
yours.
we're going to be working together,
It's yours, brother.
we
It's
can.
yours. It's yours.
If we can make that happen, as far as taking care of our veterans, if all this happens and we get that out of it, where we can house our veterans, you know,
We can
that's
house our
one of the-
homeless too.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest wins. That
Yes.
well, the problem you have in North Carolina, and this is weird to even say, like you have the homeless population in Nashville, right? So my wife wanted to be a documentarian, and she wants to be a documentarian for homeless people. She wants to go and see what makes them.
Mhm.
So one night she just went and hung out. We were staying in Asheville, and you know, she started picking their brain. Why are you here? What are you doing? Like, oh no, we have a house. We prefer to be homeless in Asheville. Like, it's a cult. It's the weirdest thing to me that's what they choose to do, is be homeless.
But here's my thing, and
now there's a lot that don't.
our organization is not political.
Right.
But my personal belief is, before we send a dime of foreign aid to countries that hate us,
100%.
okay, there should be no homelessness in the United States.
100%.
There shouldn't be one U.S. veteran.
Nope.
And in 2008, when the housing market
There's
collapsed,
not-
right? In 2008, when the housing market collapsed, and President Obama bailed out the banks that were writing bad mortgages, and we had so many foreclosures owned by the bank, we could have literally taken 1/3 of the foreclosed houses on the grid in the United States, and we could have got everybody into a house.
Instead, we put them on the market, sold them for pennies on the dollar, and corporations bought them.
Yes. And now where are we? In this economy, underneath this administration, BlackRock
owns about
48% of the houses on the grid.
And they're going to continue to do
rents
that.
are going to go through the roof.
That's the whole point
Yes.
that they're trying to do. But if we can take this initiative and the plan that we're coming up with in writing, that's the thing that about this plan and what we're doing. You know, I told you that Western North Carolina owns this.
Yep.
Right. But you know, most people, whenever they're writing a plan or they're coming up with a plan, they want to say, we're doing it this way. This is my way. This is the only way to do it.
Yes.
We are totally open for. I'm a firm believer that it's going to be the differences of everyone and the different opinions and the different thoughts that actually make this successful. Like we have to open this up for everybody. And I told you this, you know, what we're doing is for the homeless guy and it's for the billionaire.
Yep.
It's for the Republican, the Democrat. It's for anybody that God created.
Yep. And you know what that is? It's the Henry Ford theory.
Yeah.
Henry Ford announced that he was going to build a 1-mile long plant in Detroit, and he was going to offer his Model T in any color that you wanted, as long as it was black, for $99. And he was going to run it on peanut oil. Okay. That was his plan. All the major news agencies in the United States knew that he had no real formal education, and they called him stupid.
Right.
So he sent out an invitation to the New York Times, and he said, I'm going to come to New York. He said, and I'm going to answer 3 questions. Any question that you want to ask me about any topic, I will come there and I will have the answer. They thought he was a buffoon. He walks into the New York Times building in New York, and he had 2 requests. He said, I need a phone on the desk and a glass of water. They were there for him. The first question was posed to him by a physicist. Okay. He reaches for the glass of water and he takes a sip of the water, picks up the phone, and he dials a number. He hands the phone to the gentleman that asked him the question. He says, can you please repeat the question to the man on the other side of the phone? And he did. And the man on the other end of the phone gave him the correct scientific answer. He said, ask me questions.
I love it.
He
That is exactly
he
what
says-
we're doing.
He says, ask me
That is
question number
it
2.
right there.
He says, ask me question number 2. And they said, that's not fair. You said you would answer. He said, I never said that I would answer.
I will get you the answer.
I said I would get you the answer.
Yep.
My
love
job
it.
to fulfill my dream for the American people to be able to have a mode of transportation very cheaply is to not for me to be the most intellectual man in the room,
Right.
but for me to have the resources surrounding me to solve any problem that comes up against us.
100%.
And brother, I think that's what we're doing here.
That's exactly what this, whenever I say Western North Carolina owns WNC Strong, they own it. We all own it. I say we all own it together, and we're all going to have a say in it.
Yep.
And, you know, we can't open up our meetings for everyone to talk because we would never get a full meeting in. But whenever we do have meetings, we're going to put them live, and anyone and everyone can come on there, make your comments, write down your thoughts, and submit them to us after the meeting.
Yep.
And we will look, you know, it might be a million thoughts we might have to go through. So I'm not saying we'll get back to you today or the day we have the meeting, but we will in earnest take your thought, take what you're saying, and put that into the plan we're making to see if it fits in or if it gives us a different viewpoint on this plan. Because we need every viewpoint and every way to think about this as possible, especially if we're going to do this big of a project this quick and be this effective with it. Like just talking about, I mean, that brings on a whole new piece to this where you're talking about being able to provide housing for veterans. I mean, that's been a goal of mine since I started developing. How can we do that?
Ben, ask me why I'm really here.
What now?
Ask me why I'm really sitting
Why
here.
are you here?
Because there was something that you said that it's part of our operation for rescue housing here, and it's this: everywhere that I have been in the United States after a catastrophe, eventually federal contractors who have federal contracts come into these communities, and they make all the money. They hire no local contractors, okay, and then they leave. And the community is left with a force-fed redevelopment plan that maybe they didn't want, but they got because that's all the federal government.
That's all they could get.
In our discussion, why I'm sitting here is this: I believe that we are at a pivotal time in American history in regards to disaster relief and response. I believe that we can take this moment, force the hand of the government to say, this is a government of the people and for the people. Those federal dollars should be funded directly to this state. Those dollars should go to the builders and contractors and developers and HVAC and electricians and plumbers, and they should rebuild their own communities themselves
100%.
because that creates immediate economic development. You're talking about tourism, and I know you now have a plan to maintain the tourism, but brother, the reality is—
No, we have to get the money. The money that goes into building has to stay in this economy.
Yes.
That's the only way that this works, is bringing in as much money as we possibly can into this. And one thing that we're developing new technologies for disaster relief out of necessity. So we've got, I'll call them smart rednecks. We have master fabricators. We have people that think outside the box. They're going out in the field and they're seeing a need, and they come back at night and build it.
We had a situation in Burnsville, right? There was livestock everywhere.
Right.
Nobody was thinking of the livestock. Okay. We reached out to the plumbers, pipe fitters, and welders and said, this is an open call. We have a parcel of property that we are literally corralling this livestock with horses.
Right.
We need to get some fencing. They came out like an army, and overnight, they built a whole corral for all this livestock that was just walking through the woods.
I love it.
Okay. But getting back to our discussion, I know you're fervent that we're going to save the tourism-based economies in these communities. What happened in New Orleans was, for 4.5 years after Katrina, and now Gustav hit, their tourism fell off by 78%. That economy is going to take a long time to come back. So if we supplement the builders and developers and subcontractors, the federal government gives that money and they rebuild, you're creating immediate economic development.
We have to have that.
The people that lost everything, right? They're like, okay, so I'm a local handyman. I have a plumbing license and an electrical license. What am I going to do? They're going to help rebuild their own communities, and they're going to make money at it. And that money is going to feed the local economy, right? And And those areas will have that economic development while we are spearheading the tourism to build back.
Yep.
And a massive advertisement campaign to say, look at this area. It's beautiful. North Carolina is one of the most beautiful states
Yes.
in the continent of the United States. The resources alone, the landscapes alone, will get people back at a faster rate than New Orleans did. You know,
Yes,
New
we
Orleans
will.
had a double whack. They had a 100-year hurricane in Katrina, and then 2 years later they had a 100-year hurricane in
Yeah.
Gustav. You know,
God, we hope that doesn't happen here.
let's stay on that point, Ben, for a second.
Right.
Okay. In all my experience around the world, in all kinds of natural disasters and man-made disasters, the things that I have seen here with Hurricane Helene are scientifically impossible.
I thought so as well.
Okay.
Like the stuff that you see, it's almost like the water came out of the ground in a lot of these. Like if you go to these slides don't happen at the top of the mountain. And it was, for instance, the one at Black Mountain, I went to it and I walked as far as I could. And then the lady actually had her car and we were blocked off. And I said, where did this start? She said, the very top of the mountain where the spring was. So it's like that.
There's never been a hurricane in the history of the world that has been able to achieve that much decimation at an elevation between 3,000 and 4,000 feet.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's scientifically impossible, brother.
So it's almost like they had to cloud seed it to get that much
when
water to come out of it.
9/11 happened, right? I was in the thick of it, very young man, okay, in the thick of it. Me and a buddy were actually changing the hot water heater in my house that went bad. My wife at the time comes out into the garage and she says to me, she says, a plane just hit the World Trade Center building. I'm like, oh, those little Cessnas hit it all the time in history. It's fine. She said, no, a passenger plane. So the buddy that was helping me was a police officer in town. We both go in to watch TV, and I'm thinking that I am seeing a replay of the plane hitting the first tower. And I'm like,
Nope.
that second plane is going to hit the other tower.
I watched that one.
And my buddy, who was the cop, he said, no, bro, it's just a replay. I said, bro, it says live right there.
Yep.
The plane hit. My beeper went off. His beeper went off. And within 2 hours, I was down there. Okay. However, the patriotism that we saw
Mm-hmm.
in those days after, you're not seeing here.
No, nobody's coming to.
Okay. And that bothers me to the core because we are so politically divided as a nation, right?
And we have to get away from that.
And we have to get away from that.
Yeah.
And I think we have an opportunity here in North Carolina to recapture that American spirit as well.
Yeah.
I can tell you in all the areas that I've been deployed, the Appalachian people are the hardest people I have ever met.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I have never seen, well, usually when you go to these catastrophes, everybody is just, they're shocked.
Right.
And they want help, right? They want somebody else to help them. What I've seen here in all the communities that I've visited is it didn't matter about party.
No.
You were all North Carolinians helping North Carolinians.
Appalachians is a different breed, man. We and what my hope is that through the call of Western North Carolina, WNC Strong, and us come together and do this together, that the world can look at us and say,
Absolutely.
that's the way this was supposed to happen.
Absolutely.
That's the way you're supposed to take a disaster and recover from it.
Yes.
We're not going to wait on the government to help us. I want their money.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. We want the money from the government.
We will get the money.
But if we all come together and work together, housing's first, no matter what, first monies go to housing.
Mm-hmm.
While we're doing that, once we get the housing underway, we're going to rebuild Main Street.
Yep.
And after we start rebuilding Main Street, we're going to, because Main Street's the heart of tourism and the heart of what makes Western North Carolina special. After we have that on the way, then we're going to reach out and start building the tourism part back. But while we do that, we're going to try to keep the spotlight, and I have a good plan for it, on us the entire time to where we're never forgotten about.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the group, the Katrina group that, Katrina hit, we had people move here. I was a teacher at the time, and I think we had like 20 people move from Louisiana and started high school at Franklin High School. But I mean, after the first part of it, I don't ever remember hearing about it anymore. Nobody even knew it. It just went away.
Yeah, every year on the anniversary of Katrina, I travel to New Orleans
Hmm.
and I go to a local bodega near the lower Ninth Ward and I pick up that day's newspaper. I go to the same house in the lower Ninth Ward and I hold up that paper. The same house is still standing, overgrown with vegetation. The car in the driveway is overgrown with vegetation because they didn't want to bring the infrastructure back because it was at the lowest point in New Orleans. It was built for slave labor to build the railroads, the Chinese and the Irish and everybody else that was enslaved to build those railroads. And they didn't want to build the infrastructure back. You know, it was amazing how a couple days after I met with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and they wanted to partner with the National Association of Home Builders on the Make It Right Foundation. They wanted to build this real sexy, sustainable housing, and they were all abstract, modern, you know, California looking. And everybody in the community is like, "You can give me that house. I don't want to live in that house." You know, you go back to the lower Ninth Ward now, nobody ever inhabited them. There's blocks and blocks of them that are just lean-tos now, all vines overgrown because no lower Ninth Ward resident wanted to go into there. But the infrastructure never came back, brother.
Well, that's my goal, is that doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
We're going to force the hand of the government. We're going to force it by going out and starting the work and doing it. And then people like you that have the inside track on the federal funds, while we're building this with with the funding that we're able to come up with, you get that, and it's just going to be gasoline on the fire as we build it.
And
we'll have the flame going. You add the gasoline, and it will explode.
And it comes down to our founding fathers created a constitutional republic, that this is a government for the people and by the people.
It's not right now.
Where we have come politically is politicians do not work for the American people.
Nope.
They promote their own initiatives. Do you think any American in this decimated economy would have voted for the infrastructure bill worth $4 trillion when they couldn't afford groceries on a daily basis? Okay.
No.
That the people do not have charge of this country, and it's not constitutional. We need to get that back. And I think we're at a place right now where we're going to put them in the spotlight and say, you can make amends with the people of North Carolina. Release those federal dollars to the locales that were affected. Let these people locally rebuild their communities, create the immediate economic development that they need.
Yep. If you can do that, we'll start the fire. You get us the gasoline, and we'll really take off.
Yep. And
I mean, it's to the point. To your point of it isn't for the people. The state of North Carolina held a vote, and we voted to have voter ID. That passed the state. That wasn't like the Congress and the Senate. That the House and the Senate they voted to have it as well, but we actually did it as the people, and they let one judge overrule that and take it away after we actually voted for it.
We had a situation in Yancey, right? Justin calls me up and he says the sheriff shut all relief efforts down. I'm like, why did he do that? He said, because people are going to the hubs for relief supplies, and they're saying, "Oh, I lost everything," blah, blah, blah. And then they're flooding the local big box retailers and trying to return all of this stuff to get gift cards.
Really?
So I call up the sheriff and I said, "Sheriff, you can't shut us down." He's like, "Well, you got to understand, man, I'm getting a lot of heat from big boxes and we got to put a lid on this thing." I said, "No, you don't." I said, "Anybody who shows up, have them show their driver's license." "Well, you don't understand. Everybody probably lost their driver's license." I said, "Your building department and your division of taxation, was that affected by the storm?" He says, "No." I says, "So get a copy of every deed in those areas. And when the person comes the first day, say, where did you live? Here's a copy of your deed. Bring it tomorrow and you'll get your
That's
relief."
a good idea.
Okay. And then Justin came up and said, "Well, the first thing we're going to do if the sheriff doesn't do this is we're cutting the UPCs off of everything." And that's what we did.
I mean, there's always a solution. That's, that I've always been under, and I've always done it. Really, it's everybody comes with a problem. There's no solution. The only problem I ever had that I couldn't find a solution is, we were pregnant and the baby had a birth defect. I can't solve that one. But if it's not of human, if it's here on Earth that is man-made, like you're talking about, there is a solution, and that's a great solution. Just cut it off where they can't take. And we were starting to see that in Franklin, and we're coming up with ways to shut it down because we have a pretty nice, So in Franklin, what we had, I was helping here, and we went to Hendersonville and opened up a soup kitchen, and all my people from Franklin came and ran that. And I'm like, "What are we doing in Franklin?" They're like, "We haven't done anything." I'm like, well, I'm here, and I guess I was probably the one that's supposed to be doing it. So my group and my sister, we announced it that night, and within 24 hours, we had a full-blown operation. We had tractor trailers showing up. So just off that, in less than 2 weeks, we've had 600 volunteers go into Franklin. So it's crazy. We were in an old Kmart building, and they kicked us out. And then I made a public post about it, and they decided, well, we want to help you. But let me tell you, let me tell you what their help was. Their help was we pay them $480,000 for the year, and when we come back after we'd already moved out, they wanted $480,000 paid up front, not even by the month. So it's like whatever.
What we did in Florida for Milton?
What?
We went to the mayors of towns that weren't affected, and we said, Office Depot's out of business. You got one in town. Big Lots is out of business. Call up the company, see if they'll donate. The only thing we had to do was pull a liability insurance policy, and they gave them to us for 60 days.
Really? Well, they wouldn't let us stay there. We ended up in Discover Church. They stepped up. We have a really nice store. We've got other places. Andrew Huskin stepped up, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name by Tractor Supply. They gave us one. They're letting us stay there. We're trying to set up specific locations for specific needs, like the toys for Christmas or fuel. It's getting very well organized. Like this week for us is about organization, getting systems, protocols in place, and finishing the plan, getting the plan implemented. It's already taken off. We're going tomorrow, starting to meet with people inside each town. We're basically adopting 7 towns to rebuild. I say adopt, it's their people doing it. We're just going to help them with the resources to do it, and then with the housing as well.
So in Morganton, Justin found a local electrical contractor. He's got a 200,000 square foot electrical supply house. American patriot, great Christian brother, definitely divine intervention. He's dedicated 70,000 square feet of his facility for relief supplies drop-offs.
Really?
In 16 days, we are unloading 8 to 12 tractor trailers a day that are coming from all over the country. And what we've done is that's the main hub. The problem that we have right now is all of we call them forward operation bases, FOBs. The churches, the police departments, the fire departments, they're overfilled. They have too much stuff, too much diapers, too much.
But we have to be able to take the supplies
that
we're being offered.
Right. But what we do in Morganton now is they contact us the night before, and they say, we need more water, we need more generators, we need propane, we need gas, blah, blah, blah. So from Morganton, we deploy in the morning trucks that leave out with specifically palleted product that's needed. We've even gone down to an adopt a family program. So now,
I love that.
So now the family can contact the hub and say, I need more diapers, I need formula. Now we have pallets that are sectionalized with individual adopt a family supplies that go directly. They go to
That's a good idea. Church. We need to do that in Franklin.
It's amazing.
That would take out a lot of this where people are showing up. Like while I was there 2 days ago, I mean, a group of 3 women showed up, and you could tell they were not, they were there, and they got all the high dollar stuff. What am I going to say? Like I can't.
Looking through.
Yeah, and they're picking all the high dollar, and they filled this car to the brim, and it was not.
They had that problem too up in Burnsville.
They took 50 toothbrushes, new in the wrapper. It's like, what do you need 50 toothbrushes for?
Yeah.
Anyway,
but see,
you don't have 50 teeth between the 3 of you. I don't know why you need.
It comes down to logistics and tactical command, right? So right now, our organization has the ability that we have a qualified hub. It's being communicated every day. That gives us the ability now to completely step away and address this immediate housing issue that nobody from the federal government or FEMA is.
No, they haven't even thought about it.
And I just, brother, I just got to tell you, thank you so much for having us here. And, and accepting us as a partner of,
Yep.
West North Carolina strong. And we're looking
We'll,
forward to it.
I'm telling you what, whenever we get this plan rolled out, and we'll be working together right now, once we get it in motion, it's going to just fly.
Yeah.
That's what we do, land developments, and you can talk to any, like our group that works. Whenever we actually get started, we do stuff that everyone thinks is impossible. We built an entire development on a 30% grade in the mountains of North Carolina in 28 days, paved and all.
Hmm.
And that was
Well,
a couple miles of
I'm going
road.
to give you a challenge.
Yeah, I'll take it.
In 14 days, I want 2,500 of those shipping container houses already planted.
That I can get the roads done.
All right.
I can line that out. Now we got to figure out how to get the actual pads in, but we'll figure it out. Like, we've got enough. The cool part is we have enough contractors that we work with in all the local communities and around Southeast. I mean, if I had to call my buddy in Texas, he would send me 30 pieces of equipment, 30 operators.
And here's something else we have.
But I want to keep the money here locally.
Absolutely.
Is what I want to do.
Here's something else we have, brother. I've had a conversation with a gentleman named Jonathan Falk. He is head of the National Association of Home Builders Disaster Relief Committee. Ironically, when Katrina hit, I was sitting on the board of directors of the NHB, and that was my committee that I created.
Right.
So we talked, and he said, this is what we need to do. We have 160,000 builders in the association. We have a very powerful lobby that we can help you from DC. We will advocate that all these federal dollars come directly to North Carolina contractors.
Really?
Yes. So I had another conversation that was facilitated by Mr. Falk with the EO of the North Carolina Builders Association this morning, telling him that I was meeting you. I hadn't disclosed who you were, obviously, because we hadn't met face to face and consummated our accord, that we had a developer and we had funding behind us. And all we needed the North Carolina Builders Association to do was shake our hand and be part of West WN Strong. So I think we're there. I think that 14-day mark,
we can put a lot of houses on the ground to get a lot of people in out of the cold, and that is our goal number one. And then once we get people, out of tents and in actual houses, or at least the housing that can hold heat, and then we'll work on building from there.
And just in Burnsville alone, okay, another organization called Operation Barbecue Rescue. How many meals have they made in Burnsville?
Well, not just in Burnsville, everywhere. I've seen a post they put up. I think they've put out, I think it was like 12 million meals.
12 million hot meals in 23 days.
Hot meals between, I think, like 30 different locations over the last, 20
Now that's been something awesome to watch, is all these people in groups bring their food trucks in and have the meals and just go set them up. If anything, this did show us that there is hope. I always say we do a bunch of RV developments, and my wife loves staying in her camper, and we go down to Ocean Lakes, and it's in Myrtle Beach. And Ocean Lakes is an anomaly because you have people renting a $30 RV lot, staying in their camper. And then right over there, you have people staying in a $10,000 week beachfront home. Okay, so you've got, I don't know, there has to be 5,000, 10,000 sites in this place. And it's from the RV park to a double wide to a single wide to the nicest beach house you've seen. But whenever dark comes, everybody gets in their golf cart. Nobody knows who anybody else is like that. They don't know if you stay in that beach house or if you stay in that on that
pop up. And
they do a golf cart parade, and everybody drives and passes each other, and everybody gives my kids love it. Everybody gives high fives. So you've got just a line of people, and nobody knows who has money, who doesn't have money, and nobody cares. And that to me shows that there is hope for humanity, that we can come back from this just discord. It doesn't matter what color you are, how much money you have. nobody cares in that moment. And to me, I don't see that anybody cares in life that there is a agenda to force us into thinking that we hate each other. Like they actually do a media marketing to try to do that. If they would just shut up, everything it would all be fine.
Absolutely.
But they won't do it.
Absolutely.
Because that's what makes money. You know, that's how they make their money. But anyway, well, guys, we're it's 10 o'clock. I'll let y'all go to sleep. Couple things as we finish. I'm gonna say this, and I say it every night. If you are struggling mentally, if you're struggling physically, and you just feel like there's no hope left, get with our group. I'm living proof that there is hope. All right. We're going to get through this. If you know somebody's struggling, if you know somebody that, you know, you think they're going to do something to themselves or they feel like they're at the end of the road, get them to us. We'll send somebody out. We'll get them with a preacher. We'll get them with a pastor. We'll get them the mental help they need. We'll help them, you know, for now, get through financially until the plan works out. But don't do something that you can't take back. There is hope. We're going to get through this.
And Ben, if I can just close on one thing.
100%.
You know, I see people all over social media saying, "Oh my God, prayers and hope, prayers and hope."
Mm-hmm.
That's great, and I love it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's bringing people together. But the reality is that unless organizations like ours are consistently funded, we're burning through about $6,000 to $10,000 a day just in helo fuel, diesel fuel, and truck fuel. Okay. We have to get those materials, relief materials, to people. We have to continue to buy the outside the box things, like, you know, we're buying Starlinks. They're not cheap.
Right.
Okay. So if I can tell your audience, please consider our organization as one of those orgs. We are a 501c3. You can go to www.patriotsurvivaltacticalteam.org. We have a specific donation page. You can give from $5 to $500,000.
Right.
But understand this, that with our organization, 97.5% of every contribution goes directly to purchase relief supplies. The other percentage goes for fuel.
Right. Fuel's a big one right now. And if anybody, I will say this on that fuel note. So we're looking at probably, we're doing the numbers, and we have a fuel specialist in this, but just to keep people warm and alive. And I don't remember if this is Avery County or the whole deal, but it's $70,000 a week. And I believe that's just Avery County. That's a number that we're up against, and there's no good way to do this. So what we're going to do on our fundraisers is we're going to start doing a weekly $10,000 from our group and put it out there, and we're going to promote it. We're going to sell it like we're selling a house, and hopefully we can get enough traction with y'all sharing it that we can, Mountain Alliance and Mission can at least put can raise $10,000 a week to go towards fuel. We're also talking to NASCAR. I've got some bugs out there. We're trying to see if maybe they'll do a program with us. But if you know of any organization that would like the exposure to say that, you know, they helped out with fuel every week, you know, we'll put their name in spotlight. We'll promote that they were a big factor in this. With Western North Carolina Strong, with WNC Strong, we're going to take partners. They'll be able to be on our website. There'll be corporate sponsors. There'll be gold, silver, family sponsors. But that's coming out. That's part of what we're doing this week, is coming up with an organization where we can start promoting that out there so we can get the money to fund stuff like this. Because it's a big number. And, you know, they're trying to do it all at once and say, you know, we need $1.8 million for Avery County for the year. Well, one, that gives everybody the thought that you have a year to donate.
But wait, Ben, is that really a big number?
I mean, it's not,
I mean,
but
we just gave $444 billion.
Oh yeah, it's not a big number in that terms. The fact that they'll give it to other countries,
Nations that hate us,
and they're not giving us anything back. But we've got to start getting bite-sized amounts. So, you know, if it's something that your group wants to handle, and you say, you know, we're personally going to go out and raise $1,000 a week amongst us in Florida or in Arizona or Texas, our group will dedicate we're going to get $500 a week every single week. That way we can at least plan on that $500 and knock that off the total that we have to do. It's going to be like that for a lot of stuff, and housing's going to be one of them.
And Ben, here's another idea. You have a corporation, right? It's got employees. To the CEOs of those corporations, what we're asking is, tell your employees to please give $5 a month to this effort, right? Now you do the multiplier. You get $5 a month times all the corporations in the United States. Okay.
I mean,
you're talking about billions of dollars a month for just $5.
Yep.
Okay. Pack of cigarettes is almost $10. You shouldn't be smoking anyway. Cut back on the cigarettes from 2 packs a day, send $5.
Yeah. I mean, I was drinking 2 bottles of high dollar bourbon a day. So if you take that off, like I've got an extra $400. That's crazy. The number that alone. I mean, saved me a ton. It was in my life. I mean, it saved a lot. So probably, I know it saved my marriage as well. Thank God that she stayed with me while she did. Most people would have left.
You know, the other thing that's bothered me. I know that there's been some. I want to say I can count on 2 hands how many entertainers have actually been here and raised money and given money, right?
But they all have houses here. They have houses in Highlands. They have houses in Boone,
that I didn't know.
They're not helping.
There was a reason. But during Katrina, there was a national telethon, right? Raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Where's that? I know what the answer is. They're probably all lawyered up and afraid of the Diddy videos coming out.
Yes, that is all about to come out.
Right. But
the Diddy and
but thank God for the ones that did. Dolly Parton, here's one last thing I want to say. The U.S. Red Cross. Okay. Every time there's a disaster, it flashes on the screen. All the news agencies put it up there. 97% of the donations to the U.S. Red Cross go to fund the salaries of 120 executives.
I knew that. It's a bad.
Only 3% give to Samaritan's Purse, a real organization. The money goes 100% of the money goes directly towards the relief. Find a good nonprofit that's really doing good work for the people, not one that is a generational nonprofit that just become a corporate machine.
And that's what WNC Strong is. It's owned by the people. We're the shepherds of it. And the money's going to rebuild and revamp Western North Carolina. And everybody's going to have a say in it. And we're going to partner with people like Patriot Survival Tactical Team. We're going to partner with people that live here, work here, and they're going to help us rebuild. That's the whole point of this. So anyway, guys, that's probably that is definitely the longest. We're right at an hour. We'll keep it under an hour. But we'll take some excerpts from this and post them, the important stuff. Again, if you're struggling or you know somebody that's struggling, reach out to us. We don't want that to happen. I've been there, and that scares me to death. And, I could tell them my story. We have other people with similar stories. There is hope.
Yeah. We have a button on every post that we have on Facebook on Patriot Survival Tactical Team. It's a WhatsApp button. That WhatsApp button directly dials my phone, sends a text to my phone. From my phone, it's deployed to our commanders. And so in real time, we can respond to critical needs. So if you have someone who hasn't been rescued yet, who needs food, who needs a generator, who needs gas, who needs formula, you just follow us on Facebook, Patriot Survival Tactical Team. And you can click that WhatsApp button and you can make a comment. We have volunteers that are ferreting through all those comments. And thank God for social media.
Yeah, thank God. That basically ran this whole social media ran this whole campaign.
Yep.
I felt everybody knows I don't like answering my phone, and I was sitting here with my phone, a computer, and an iPad,
and
it was all going off, and I was just going back and forth like I couldn't leave.
We feel your pain.
Me and my wife went to my year sobriety was October 5th, so we went back to Malibu, stayed in LA. I'd already planned it. I went out there to meet we probably shouldn't have went because all we did was go out there and work.
Right.
We stayed. She worked. We both worked on this. My wife's been great during this whole thing. She's taken a lot of the burden. She's not good with death and destruction, and she's lived through it and sucked it up and has done a great job. So,
You know, I keep saying one last thing, but I promise.
All right, last thing.
For those of you in America that are looking at this decimation, right, and you're like, oh my God, I couldn't even believe if I was in that situation. Well, let me tell you a little something that's happened in North Carolina. 67% of all the IV fluids in our
it
country
broke.
Okay.
It was out of the
You
one
think
building in
this is-
Morganton.
This storm, this catastrophe is not going to affect every
It
corner of
affected
America.
everybody.
That company's facility will be offline for 3 to 5 months.
Yep.
Okay.
And the other one was
we now have an
in
executive order from this
Tampa.
president that is now allowing us to order those IV fluids from other countries that won't meet our
Ugh.
standards. Okay. And if you have a loved one that's in the hospital 3 months from now and there is no IV fluids, this Hurricane Helene and what it's done here in North Carolina.
How
is
do
gonna
we?
affect every
Let's
American.
ask that. How do we get something back up and running quickly? Like we need to come up with a solution to that.
Yeah.
There's got to be one.
But see, that's beyond our pay grade because for multiple administrations,
Well, let's just take it on.
we have outsourced all of our pharmaceuticals. Okay.
Well, that's for a reason.
Most of our pharmaceuticals are in Ireland now or China, right? As
Mhm.
well as what happened with the M95 masks. We didn't have them. We had to get them from China.
Yep.
Okay. It's the same thing with what we're
the one
dealing
that
with
caused
now.
the COVID outbreak, we had to get our masks from.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that works.
it was an amazing plan. It was a great business model, actually.
Yeah, it was.
So, but Benjamin, thank you so
Yeah,
much, man.
thank you.
Really appreciate it.
And everybody stay tuned. We'll start releasing more information, and anybody that wants, to help during that, let us know. And I agree with you, Kaylee, on Mr. Beast. We need him on this right now. He is actually he's from North Carolina. He's actually his whole thing's up there. So we need it. We need him on our side for sure.
100%.
All right, guys. Later. Much love.